Michelle Cavanaugh is here with us. Michelle is a licensed clinical social worker. She earned her master's degree in social work from Columbia University. She has over 25 years of experience working with children's families, individuals in a variety of settings, mostly in the Bronx and Westchester County, New York area. She has been with DARE since her first coaching program in 2009, and she has extensive training and an integrative approach in mindfulness-based therapy, CBT, exposure therapy. Really, what drew me to her approach is how actionable her strategies are for helping you manage anxiety related to digestive health and health issues. So that's really what we're going to be diving into today is how to manage anxiety, hypervigilance about issues like acid reflux GERD. So thanks so much for being here today, Michelle.
Thank you for inviting me.
I think it would be helpful just to kind of dive in and talk about like what health anxiety is and what how we can recognize it.
Yeah, and so anything I'll say will sound like an oversimplified explanation. So a little bit for time wise, but a little bit for simplification too. Not to oversimplify or to minimize, but really to just try and normalize
Mhm.
um, and just to pick up on more so of the patterns we follow, not necessarily about the subject or the content of what we hook to. So like health anxiety in my experience, it's basically either somebody who is hooked on either a present thing that's happening right now and just sort of hooked to it and staring at it and latched into it, usually some version of a physical sensation or state of being, and then it's pinned to some future scenario. Here's this. I don't like it. It's some version of discomfort. It's not a pleasant physical sensation. It's some physical discomfort that my interpretation of it or my story about it is this is either danger right now or going to become danger at some point in the future. And so what we do is we tend to stay hyper vigilant and fixated and focused on it here. And if we can fight it here, we'll somehow prevent the there thing from happening.
Mhm.
And because the coulds aren't here, the coulds always could, it keeps people in this loop of constantly checking their bodies to see as long as this thing is gone, then I'll prove that this bad thing isn't going to happen,
Mhm.
which really kind of just becomes more of like an anxiety, OCD-ish type cycle
Mhm.
rather than keeping you any more alive from a could. But because it feels so important and it's so valuable to you because nobody wants to die, that kind of is it's like the driving factor of the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, I see this all the time with my clients. It can be really, really hard and
Mhm.
definitely something that, I experienced firsthand when I was struggling with reflux. And so you mentioned hypervigilance, and I think this is a word people may have not heard before. And can you talk a little bit about how you see hypervigilance showing up in people with digestive health issues like reflux or other health anxiety issues?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a big piece of it. Hypervigilance so vigilance is being aware and on the lookout for something, which is
Mhm.
useful, right? Anxiety, this fight or flight mode, it's useful, it's good when it's useful. And so if you're in a heightened state and basically you've got your eye on something, like there's blood gushing out of your arm, it's useful to be able to stay fixated and focused on this. Everything goes into peripheral vision. Here comes urgency, here comes importance, here comes dread, here comes all of those feelings that come with fight or flight mode. Useful when there's right now danger and a right now thing that you can do something about,
Mhm.
right? When it's not useful is when we use that hyper arousal state to fixate on something that it's not right now danger, but it could be danger, or it reminds you of danger, or it's just really awful present discomfort.
Mhm.
And we stay fixated on something, and when there's no resolution to the thing,
Mhm.
fixation just keeps staying. We keep looking and checking to see, and that's where that cycle picks up.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the looking and checking, that's something that I wanted to dive into today.
Hmm.
And from your experience, like how does that hypervigilance actually like potentially aggravate symptoms or acid reflux? Because I definitely see this playing out for some of my
Yeah,
clients.
well, especially in this world, because you have fight or flight. And the
Mhm.
opposite of fight or flight is rest and digest. So
Mhm.
I always picture it on like a seesaw. So if your fight or flight mode is on, rest, digest, and sex, I throw that in there too, tend to go to the back burner because those are needed for survival. Sex is needed for species survival, but you need to eat and you need to sleep, and not right now. You need to run from murderers and run from bees, and you need to be in a hyper aware state for right now danger. And so these rest and digest kind of go to the back burner.
Mhm.
And so in this, so if you, even if people that are experiencing digestive issues, you might also be experiencing sleep issues. You don't have like three or four or five, six, seven different problems. It's
Mhm.
probably I am kind of stuck in danger mode without a danger thing to fight. And then when we battle the wrong things, that thing now gets marked as danger.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I definitely see this playing out. People may have started to experience reflux, and then they maybe Google their symptoms, become
Mhm.
very anxious about the symptoms. They're constantly checking, kind of anticipating symptoms, and then that fight or flight of being in hypervigilance can really disrupt their digestion from a physiological standpoint. Yeah, and so this is really that mind gut connection piece that I
Mhm.
that I talk a lot about, and I see being problematic. Um, Another question I had for you is like, what are some actionable pragmatic strategies for people who are stuck in this hypervigilance, and how can we reduce its impact? Because it can be, I think, the hardest. People may be aware it's happening, but just not sure how to move forward.
Right. You know what? And even just awareness that it's happening is the first step because most people are aware of the thing that they're fighting. Like if it's reflux or dizzy or whatever it is that you're fighting, we're usually very aware of the thing and we're not aware of the fight.
Mhm.
And so I'm much more interested when I talk to people instead of, oh my God, my stomach is blank again, or I'm feeling this physical sensation again. It's, oh, there I go staring at my body again. Oh, there I go telling dangerous stories about my body. There I go off into the coulds. There I go Googling again. There I go looking for reassurance again.
Mm.
Noticing the behavior more
Yeah.
so than the thing that my behavior is hooked to. And then once you notice the behavior, then it's, sorry, there was a little hair and I didn't know where it was coming from. Um, then, so that's kind of dare. The
Yes.
next piece is if I'm hooked on something that my hook serves no purpose, this latch serves no purpose, there's kind of like how to get unlatched from the thing. And so in this world, it would be anything related here. This was my thing too. My anxiety hooked to my stomach. And I
Mhm.
spent my day making every decision about how do I feel? How do I think I'm going to feel this afternoon? Will I be able to handle this thing if this gets worse? And maybe I should drive myself just in case. And
Mhm.
so we're forecasting how we think we're going to feel as if we're predicting danger. And so our body stays in survival mode, which keeps rest and digest from properly happening. And so, if anybody's familiar with DARE, it's an acronym. We made it to be helpful, not to get people lost in the steps, not to do more work, but it stands for, D is for diffuse, right? You are now fused to something, and it's more to step back and give a little space. What's happening right now? I notice I'm staring at my stomach again. I notice I'm very turned inward looking at my own body. Allow. Yep, that's what it's doing. Allow is not work. It's stopping all the work that we were doing that kept us hooked. Run towards is kind of like a paradoxical approach of, well, I guess that's what my body's doing right now. And it could do it even more. I am not controlling it. And that's a big piece of all of this control and trying
Mhm.
to kind of get detached from the thing that we think my hook is controlling it. And then E, engage. Well, I used to say E, engage, but really it's, and then where are you engaged? Because a lot of people stay internally focused. It's fine. Okay, it's okay. It's just my stomach. It's okay. It'll pass. It's fine. It's fine. And then they stay staring and fixed and looking at it. It's a very, have you noticed, like internal focused, and it's hard to engage here because I'm so busy
Yeah.
involved here. And engage is before you engage your mind, you really have to kind of go get involved in what's most important rather than what's most uncomfortable and get yourself involved in life or whatever you were doing before this called your attention. And then engagement tends to follow involvement.
That's so fascinating because I can't tell you how many of my clients have noted when they go on vacation or if they're fully into a project or into an
Mhm.
interest, passion, or a goal, like they don't notice their symptoms as much or their symptoms feel less severe. This isn't true for everyone, but definitely like I would say just, 80% of my clients will notice this
Mhm.
phenomenon. And that's why I really emphasize for them to dive into passions, interests, hobbies, goals. Like it is when we think about stress management and nervous system, like we think about yoga and meditation, and that's all awesome. But also like just involving yourself in external things. Would you
Yep.
recommend that as like a strategy as well?
Absolutely, because that's what you would be doing if you weren't so fixated on your body. And
Mm,
that's kind of like my golden question. I'll say like, what would you be doing if this was gone? What
yeah.
else would you be looking at? Because whether this is some again, I'm not belittling an experience, but I'm just trying to simplify. My body is loud or this feels unpleasant as opposed to this is right now danger,
Hmm.
right? The coulds of danger, oh, coulds always could. And so, like, most of my calls are learning how to let coulds exist without trying to pre battle them before they show up.
Oh my gosh, the coulds really can be challenging, especially for
Hmm.
people with reflux or even if they've been diagnosed with Barrett's, like, precancerous cell changes. There's a lot of
Hmm.
anxiety with reflux and I think that can be really hard for people. Do you have any strategies on sort of like that unknown, how to deal with that and the thought maybe even like I don't know if you would call it an intrusive thought, but I think some of my clients may feel that it's an intrusive thought sort of in their brain about the future and
Yeah. And it's, you don't deal with it. That's kind of what created the disorder. So
mm,
again, your body puts you into this fight or flight mode. So it sends you now energy so you can now fight now danger. Where it
mm,
kind of gets mislatched is when we are now using that now energy to now fight the coulds of danger. Or in some of my other calls, the memories of past dangers. That's more of the world of PTSD. Or if they did have a medical problem or a procedure or a surgery, sometimes it has clients more selling their story harder. Yeah, but it did once before. And
uh-huh.
so it really could. So still a could, and that's why I try and keep it simple. Sometimes I sound like I'm 4 years old, but a could. We don't fight coulds.
Yeah.
Should that what if become a what is, I will absolutely attend to it. But we tend to be like doers and
Mhm.
planners, and it's usually useful in other parts of life. I get super uber successful people in the world, but that mindset kind of creates an anxiety disorder when you're trying to fight things that aren't fightable right now.
Mm.
I had people join cancer support forums without even having cancer yet, but just in case they do, they'll have a plan in place. And so we tend to cross the line from plan to acting like something's just about to happen at any second. And so, absolutely, your body will maintain hypervigilant state if you're telling it something terrible is just about to happen. It's going to do its job of trying to keep you alive by keeping you in stay alive mode.
Right. Yeah. It can be it's like a negative feedback loop.
Hmm.
That sort of reaction can really impact your digestion and keep you stuck in that anxiety. So it sounds like correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of like being allowing yourself to be in the present moment, trying to practice because it's easier said than done, right? But like practicing
Hmm.
being okay with the unknown, not needing to figure it out right now. I think and it's not that we're not using things to support our health. It's just more of like not
Right.
having to necessarily figure it all out and being okay with not knowing the
Hmm. Yeah, because you don't know. And you can fight the coulds all you want, it still
yeah.
could. Right? And so that's scary for us. I mean, to me, it always comes down to control, vulnerability, uncertainty. And it's a non fightable thing. So I have to do like follow wellness practices for the sake of wellness, right? If I
Yeah.
have my body's doing certain things, oh, maybe I'll adjust my diet for the sake of wellness. But in my world, it's usually with this must or else survival mindset because danger, my body's going to turn into danger any second.
That is so important, like, the intention behind it. It's
Mhm.
out of
Always
fear.
intention.
Yeah, and I that's what I talk about too with my group program is, like, we're focusing on health and, like, focusing on
Mhm.
wellness and instead of, like, coming from a place of fear. And I think that's sort of what you're saying. Is that right?
Right, because most of my calls see, the world of wellness is, I mean, you can find 10 gazillion posts on diet and exercise and how to manage anxiety and breathing exercises and coping strategies. The world of wellness, once you get to me, they're usually the thing you're trying to do wellness approaches about tends to become the obsession, and
Uh,
all these wellness strategies become almost compulsive behaviors with a must or else mindset. I can't eat this. I have to, like, if notice if they're extreme vocabulary, I'll tell people never, must, always, have to. Those are survival words, and if those are the words you're telling yourself, that's what will keep you in a hyper vigilant state with that particular body part of your body marked as danger.
Oh yeah, it's especially when there's so many books out there on reflux that are very strict that you cannot eat anything below this pH, or you absolutely
Mhm.
cannot. You have to wait this many hours before going to bed, and yeah, like those can be helpful strategies potentially, but it's really strict, and it can actually keep people, I think, stuck in a state of hypervigilance when people get obsessed with sort of those guidelines. So finding flexibility, I think, is
Mhm.
really key for long term.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Because you'll see the same thing in the world of anxiety. Never drink caffeine and always do this. And even when, if wellness is with a must or else,
Yep.
that's not wellness, right? Sleep, same thing. You only use your bed for sleep and sex and only do this and always do this. For somebody like me, I don't have a disordered relationship with sleep. I'm just a
Mhm.
I'm not a great sleeper. So those tips would be useful for somebody like me because I would take it with a softer attitude, with a, oh, let's try this and see if this happens to improve sleep. When somebody else might call me with insomnia, a disordered relationship with sleep, and everything they're doing is, let's try this and see if this works. And I'm going to go gung ho on this. I'm going to do all the worksheets and all. I'm going to study on circadian rhythm, and I'm going to study on, like, I'm talking about sleep right now, but it's sometimes it's a little easier to pick a different thing if it's not your thing, because it doesn't matter what the thing is that we're hooked to. Dare and everything I talk about here is to get you unhooked from whatever the thing is. And do
Mhm.
you notice most of your calls you don't even talk about this? You talk
Mhm.
more about your relationship with this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that hook is something that a lot of people can relate to, and they're coming from a place of good intention of like trying to learn the strategies. And I share a lot of that. I share strategies that can help prevent reflux and help optimize digestion, but it's really like it really has to do with the intention behind it and in the
Mhm,
mindset
mhm.
around the strategies.
Yeah, that's the, and I made a post a few weeks ago that these disorders are super tricky, not because really for any other reason other than they're all well intended. They
Mhm.
are fueled by good intention. They are, I'm trying not to die. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to not go crazy in other parts of my world. And like, I'm trying to not do harm. I'm trying to be healthy. And truly, it seems like these behaviors are leading to that as the solution. And it's really not. Like, your behaviors are not making you any more healthy. They're kind of creating an anxiety disorder, probably.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and so I want to circle back to sort of that, the doer, the type A
Hmm.
personality. I can relate to that for sure, and I
Me
think a
too.
lot, a lot of my clients are the same way. And when I ask them, like, what did you like to do before you had digestive issues? Like, what are your interests and passions that have
Hmm.
nothing to do with your health? Like, a lot of times I'm trying
Right.
to shift the focus like a little bit away of health when I can tell that the hypervigilance is kind of taking over and preventing progress, and they don't know. And it's really, really hard to think about. And do you find that same challenge?
Oh, yeah, same thing, because it's constantly focused on recovery and problem solving. And then I listened to this podcast and I listened to the other podcast. And then I saw your webinars and then I did this. And it's still like, further involvement doesn't get you out of it. And
Mhm.
so, like, okay, same thing. If this was resolved, what else would you be doing? And sometimes if people have been in it for so long, like, you really don't know. And so I'll tell people, just literally pick something.
Yeah.
Go do anything. And if you can't, and even forget about it, something that brings you joy. Forget that, because if then we're still in our head going, am I finding joy? Oh, I don't even like this anymore. I don't even know if I like playing the guitar, but I'm just playing it. Then forget it. Do something that's useful, that's productive, that's meaningful. Um, Go walk a dog from the dog rescue. Go help stock a food pantry, because you can feel like absolute garbage, but if the dog doesn't care if you are sad or angry or anxious, you can still sort of do something and make a change in the world. And it's not related, it's not, you know, what's the word? Hooked to how I feel. And so
Mhm.
even just doing that and getting involved. And I posted a couple weeks ago, somebody was asking me about wellness strategies. And instead of like bath bombs or, sniffing lavender, it was move your body, right? Just move around, do something. It was get socially connected, and not to talk about anxiety or whatever the thing is you're hooked to all day long.
Yeah.
It was like involve like your brain in something intellectually stimulating that's not about this, and also practice being still, because probably, especially for a lot of your clients, um, when I'm busy and I'm at work, I'm kind of distracted, and I'm involved with other people. But when you're home, when it's quiet, if you live alone, if you're eating alone, before bed, in the shower, everything's quiet. And so it's easier to get focused on what your focus, gets hooked to. And the being part, right? We're doers. It's also learning how to be with discomfort. And that's like the somatic piece where you become an observer to your body. You notice how it feels without trying to change it or manipulate it in any sort of way.
Yeah, that is so, so helpful, and I think those strategies are really, really key. And so if someone is struggling with this right now, what are some things that you would say to them as sort of like a first step?
So the first step would be notice the struggle. How do you
Mhm.
know? So actually, this was on one of my webinars. I just saw it out of the corner of
Oh,
my eye.
perfect.
So this kind of helps break down everything. We had so many questions come in on a webinar, and so many of them fit into this category. So, what is happening is the first step. Identifiable facts, right? My stomach feels burny up here right now. I'm wearing a green shirt. It's raining. Whatever, like something observable. You can also have an opinion about it. Oh, I love the rain. My plants are getting watered. Oh, I hate this feeling in my stomach. Totally fine. Notice what's present, notice your opinion about it. Okay, with just this is non-disordered land. Generally, where we pick up the problem is, what is your story about what's happening? And it's probably awful. It's probably dangerous story. There's probably future oriented words like feels like it's gonna. So for me, instead of I feel nauseous, it was constantly I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I think I'm gonna. Feels like I'm gonna. What if it happens? Notice all your future oriented danger stories, that some catastrophic perception of this. This are the facts. These are your story about the facts. I'm much more interested in this and this. What are you what are you doing about what's happening? Probably based on your story about what's happening. What are all the behaviors, how you've adjusted your life, all the regimented way you're living? Because if I don't, something terrible might happen because
Mhm.
of this. And so when people first start talking to me, I'll tell them, try and like follow what's happening. What's my story about what's happening? Oh, this is changeable. This is changeable. This isn't really so much, but this is what we're trying to change so much, but it's really kind of has like a little bit of a lock on it. So I would focus more on these two things:
Mhm,
my
mhm.
perception of what's happening, the story I'm telling, and now how I'm treating my body, what I'm doing, the accommodations I'm making for it.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that is so helpful to see. I love how you laid that out. Thank you so much. This was so valuable. I'm sure this is going to help everyone who watches it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Um,
You'll have to come on ours next. I haven't been on Instagram Live in a long time. I lost these and then I couldn't figure out how else to do
I would
it.
love to. I would absolutely love to. If people want to find you and your work, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the Anxiety Paradox. I work with Dare. You can look up Dare Response. We have an app. I think like 60 something percent of the app is free, tons of free content. There's a premium version. There's nothing hidden behind the payment. It's just a lot more content. We have webinars that the premium members can join. We have free information on the YouTube channel. We have a group coaching program for anybody who's interested in it. And yeah, we have tons of free information out there on social media.
Amazing. Thank you again, Michelle. This was so much fun.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.